unfold. So we have an incredible, it's called like a conjunction in like spiritual terms or astrological terms. They like make things, everything like, whoa, it's like a big thing's happening. But like really conjunction is a meeting of energies where energies come together. Basically, a partnership is a conjunction, literally conjuncts with each other. It could like, bash away from each other. It's a conjunction. And when we're in the midst of change, right, such as we are right now, we're in a conjunction and we're in an opportune time and opportune moments in our lives, right? Because every moment is so important, and to know what is happening in the current events, in the happenings, right, of the week, the parsha of the week, and the month that is here. So then we know actually where we're holding in our spiritual lives and how we could gauge ourselves the best. So right now we're in conjunction with the month of Av and the month of Elul that are coming together. And then after that, we really have the new year, which is rapidly coming, about, right? The new year. It's a big thing. And there's a phase of preparation that happens for that. And that phase is basically, they say that the acronym for Tammuz is Zmanei Tshuva Memarim Uvaim, that times of tshuva are readily upon us, already in the month of Tammuz. Av is Elul Ba, right? Elul is already here. And then Elul, you're already there, and like you're preparing for the new month. But even more than that, there's a lot of contradictory energies that are there. And so we're going to explore today a beautiful, beautiful teaching from the B'nai Ysaschar. He's a great Hasidic master, a descendant of the Noam Elimelech, and he has just incredibly wonderful things to say on everything, basically. And he says like this, he brings it about it, right? He says that in the slichot, in the parts of the prayers that we say during the month of Elul, where we ask, literally translates as forgiveness, slichot, right? And they're texts that are geared to basically get us in the mind frame of soul searching and connecting with God, right? Letting go of things that maybe have not served us right, and how we could go forward. So in the text of one of the texts of Slichot, it says as follows. It says that we are, where it says, I'm going to read it in Hebrew and translate. Lo bechesed velo b'ma'asim banu lefanecha, kedalim ucherashim dafaknu delatecha. That literally translates as not with mercy and not with actions, we have come before you. Right? In other words, we're not coming with our own like big merits or our own actions that we could boast about and say, I did this and I did that. And we're coming in front of God, right? The creator of all. We're like, like big shots or whatever. Like it says, Kedalim ucherashim dafaknu delatecha. We're knocking heaven's door. Knocking on heaven's door. Kedalim ucherashim, like impoverished and literally it's not poor, but another word for impoverished, but it's lacking. Kedalim ucherashim dafaknu delatecha. We're knocking on your doors. Like we're knocking on God's door with like a feeling of like, God help me, like, like that kind of a thing. We're knocking on Hashem's door. So the B'nai Ysaschar says as follows. He says, Dihine chodashim hakodmim Tammuz Av nikra dalim verashim. That the previous months that we were just in are called impoverished and lacking. And what are the previous months? They are the months of Tammuz and Av. The months of Tammuz and Av are considered impoverished. Now, how are they called impoverished? So he brings the Arizal. And the Holy Arizal says that we know that every month has its specific letters in God's name, which is the Yud K Vav K, right? And if it's spelled out, it's 12 with a milui, right? With a Yud K Vav K. And the name Adonai is also has 12, right? Aleph, Dalid, and then Nun, and then Yud. Together, that's 12 letters. And each, right? Aleph is 3, Dalid is 3, Nun is 3, and Yud is 3, right? Yeah. So that's how we get 12. And basically, each one of those letters, if we spell them out, correspond to another month. So it starts out with Aleph, right? Aleph corresponds with Nisan. Lamed. Lamed corresponds with Iyar. Pei corresponds with Sivan, right? That's Aleph. And then it goes into Dalid. So Dalid corresponds with Tammuz, and Av corresponds with Lamed. So we get that the months of Tammuz and Av, if they're spelled together, spell out Dal, which translates as impoverished. Dal, right? And so these 2 months have the letters Dalid and Lamed, and that's what we say in our davening. We say that Hashem ozer dalim, that God helps those that are impoverished. In other words, these months that on a collective level, these months, Tammuz and Av, we had the greatest destruction ever, right? In history, in Jewish history, in the world, right? We lost the temple, which is both temples, and which is the pinnacle of creation, which is where God unifies and has his home, right, in this world, in the Beis HaMikdash. And when we don't have the Beis HaMikdash, and that has to do because of these 2 months, right? So then we're impoverished. In other words, we may be millionaires or billionaires, or we may have everything in the world, but at the end of the day, like, the matzav isn't that great. Like, in other words, like, you could have your own island, you could have your own boat, and you have your own, and it's fun and but at the same time, you really are impoverished, because impoverishment is not having the Shekhinah, not having God in the Beis HaMikdash, not having Gilui Elokus, not having Geula, basically. And therefore, these months are Dal. And that's what we say, Ozer Dalim. So what happens when Elul comes along, this month of Elul? So then we add the Taf in the letters, right? Because we have Aleph, right? We have Dalid and Lamed, which is Tammuz and Av. And then we have Taf, which is the next one in the course, in the course of those Milui, and that corresponds to Elul. And together, that spells what? Dalid Lamed Taf, Delet, which means what? A door. So up until now, it was Dal, Dalim, Verashim. And then with Tammuz and Av. And then when Elul comes along, we have a door. And that's what we say, that Hashem opens up his door, Delet Ptucha Leshavim. He opens up his door to those who return to him. And these are days of will, of supplication, of goodness in the time of our dalutenu, of our dal. Dalutenu is our impoverishment that we have, right? And they become days of auspicious days. And that's what we say in Psalm 30. Alomimcha Hashem ki dilitani. I will raise you up, Hashem. I praise you. Ki dilitani. What's dilitani? You made me dal, but now you've raised me up. Velosimachta oivayli, and you did not rejoice my enemies. So here, the B'nai Ysaschar brings an amazing idea that's found in the Megale Amukos, which is one of the very important Kabbalistic Sfarim. And in the Megale Amukos, it says that the months of Nisan, Iyar, and Sivan were given over to Yaakov, and the months Tammuz, Av, and Elul were given to Esav. And Yaakov Avinu prayed and prayed, and he asked in so many ways, in different ways. He writes it tachbulot v'tachkimuyot, and he was able to get Elul back. He snatched back Elul, right? And he took back Elul, and that means, and that's what he says: "Velo simachta oivai li." You didn't rejoice, my enemies. Who are the enemies? The enemy is Esav, because Hashem, you raised up the Dilitani, right? And you didn't allow Esav to take that. And so that's dal, right? Impoverished. But what's rash? You could also join us for spiritual food. You had enough?
I want to watch actually.
Okay, good. Yeah, you could have both. Okay. So dal means impoverished, and with a taf we have a doorway. We have a doorway that opens up for us, basically a juncture, a portal, we could say. Elul is a spiritual portal where there's a door, delit, that the door is open. We're going to discuss this. So we're going to go into this, Bezrat Hashem. But then we have the words rash. Rash means has nothing, literally, right? Where does that come from? So we know that each month has a specific sense to it. So the sense of Tammuz is re'iyah, which means sight, and has to do with the fixing of sight. And the fixing of the month of Av is shmiyah. Together that spells rash. So Tammuz and Av are not only dal from the letters, right, of the name of Adonai, but they're also rash, they're also impoverished, right, from their senses of what they represent, right? And also Reuven is the month of Tammuz, and Shimon is the month of Av. Together that spells rash, right? So now what happens next is, so who's Elul? Elul is Gad, the month of Gad, right? And so, and what does it say about the sense of the month of Elul? What's the sense of Elul? So we have sight for Tammuz, hearing for Av, and what is Elul? Elul is Asiyah. It's the tangible. It actually represents, it's the Virgo, and it has to do with Malchut, with kingship. It has to do very much with the presence of Hashem, the Shekhinah that's found in the world. That's Malchut, and that's Elul. And that has to do with action, with Asiyah. And together that spells Sha'ar. Sha'ar is a gate, right? So, what's that? Tishrei is Ephraim. No.
Tishrei is the coronation of Hashem.
Yeah, Tishrei is the Libra, basically. It's the scale of right. Yeah. So to get Elul is Asiyah, is action. Yeah. So we have Sha'ar together that spells a gate, right? Because it's Asiyah. Riyah, Shmiyah, Asiyah, we have Sha'ar, that we have the gate, right? And also the month Elul relates to the month, to the tribe of Gad. And Gad stands for, what does Gad stand for? Gimel stands for a level of Gomel, literally, and Dalid is Dalim. Gimel, Dalid, right? The Gemara says, Gomel, why does Gimel come before Dalid? Because the one that has now has to give to the Dalim, Gomel, Dalim, that's God, right? We mentioned before, Dalim is the month of Av and Tammuz, right? Gomel, Dalim is the next month, which is God, right? Which, if we multiply Gimel times 10, because really what it is that it's giving, actually the letter of the month is the letter Yud, that's associated with Elul. So if we multiply Gimel by 10, it's 30, and Daled by 10 is 40, and together that's 70, right? And what is Gad? Gad literally means mazal, right? Ba Gad, like mazal came. That's what Leah said, right? Ba Gad, that mazal came. And if we take Gad, Gimel Dalid, that equals 7, and together with the 77, maybe that's why they say lucky sevens, right? Because the numerology of mazal is 7, right? And we have 770, right? Is really like, but we have 7 is mazal, right? And that's what the what we say the hashpa. That's what Elul does, because it together with the letters of Rash, of Tammuz and Av, it becomes a shar. It becomes a gate, and there's a gate that now is open up for us, right? And that's what it says. Kedalim ucherashim dafaknu delatecha. Like that's what it says in the slichos. Like impoverished and like lacking. The fact that we knocked on delatecha, on your door. Why? Because in Elul we get the delet and we get the shar, and we're able to go inside of the shar if we so wish, right? So now he says an amazing thing. Says that in Parshat V'etchanan, right, when Moshe prays 515 times, V'etchanan el Hashem ba'et hahi, right, it says that he was davening to Hashem after that experience. What was that experience? It was the war, Rashi says, the war of Sichon and Og. So the war of Sichon and Og, Moshe Rabbeinu says, V'etchanan el Hashem ba'et hahi, after the victory that we had against Sichon and Og, I decided to pray that God should allow me, Hashem should allow me to enter the land. Why? Because it was a very auspicious moment. What was the auspicious moment? The auspicious moment was, we learn that this war was waged in Elul. The war against Sichon and Og was waged in Elul. Now, why does that make a difference? And what is this war of Sichon and Og, right? It means that V'etchanan Hashem ba'et hahi, that it was an auspicious time to battle the klipa, the negative husk of Sichon and Og. What do they represent? Sichon and Og. So here, I'd like to share a little beautiful idea from Rav Tzadok, a cohen of Lublin, who is a student of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and he says, what is the klipa of Sichon and Og? What does Sichon and Og represent, right? Because we know the klipa of Midian represents argument and disparity, right? Machloket, that's what Midian is, right? Amalek is Safek, right? Each one, there's the 7 klipas that represent also the 7 levels of Kedusha. So what does the klipa of Sichon and Og represent? So he says as follows. He says that Sichon was in charge of this place called Cheshbon. What was Cheshbon? Cheshbon literally means math, right? But it means calculation, because Sichon goes into this level of calculation. What's the calculation? Al ken yomu moshlim bo cheshbon. What are these moshlim, right? That they're thinking, they're overthinking, and it has to do with the klipa of the mind, intellectual klipa. That's what the klipa of Sichon is. It's an intellectual, cold klipa that denies, that is cold, that has doubts, right? And it doubt in possibilities outside and doubts in the possibilities of change inside. And that's what Sichon that's what Sichon represents. While the klipa of Og, who is the huge giant there, what does his klipa represent? He came from Ashtarot Karnaim, and this place was like very large cliffs, right? Basically like the Golan Heights, like that area, there were like large cliffs in that area. And that represents like cliffs or mountains represent the heart, right? Like we have like when we go into nature and we see especially mountains, right? If you see like a flat area, you're like, okay, it's nice, it's beautiful. But when you see the Grand Canyon, something like that, right? Or you see, beautiful areas in the Galilee or in Colorado or wherever you are in the world, right? It's all Hashem's. And you're like, wow. And right? It just uplifts one's heart in awe and then love. But what does the cliffs do? They're actually an obstruction. And that's what Og represents. It's the obstruction of the heart. And it holds back. And so it says that these two conquerors, and they represented these two klipas, were literally on the doorway of the land of Israel. They were right there, basically in the Golan Heights, and like a little bit further in, by Jordan. I'm not sure exactly where Sichon was, possibly even Damascus. And I'm sure because that's a very, very ancient city, and it goes back to the cradle of civilization. So it was probably up there, and you're right, it still is a very contentious area. It's essentially the north, which is like the battle that we're battling now, right? It's not just any battle. It's basically it's a very deep spiritual battle, which is what Reb Tzadok cohen of Lublin says. That's what the klipa of Sichon and Og represent, and that's why they are in the petach of Eretz Yisrael, and so they are in the doorway. So who does Moshe put in that area after they conquer those two nations? Who does he place there? Or who asked to be placed there? Reuven and Gad, actually Gad, right? Which is what we're talking about now. Reuven and Gad, the tribe of Elul, right? Very powerful. And Chatzi Shevet HaMenashe, and half of the Menashe tribe. So the B'nai Ysaschar says if you take these 2.5 tribes, and we take one tribe, each tribe has the name of God in it. That's Yud Ke Vav Ke, right? That's 26. And we take 2 tribes, that's 52, right? And then we take another half of the tribe, right? 13. It says Shiftei Ka. Each tribe has their permutation of God's name in different ways as well, right? But basically, we take that we put that together. What do we have? We have the numerology we have 65, and that's the numerology of mezuzah. The numerology of mezuzah is 65. And if we take these 2.5 tribes, they were basically placed there on the doorway. Literally, the Gemara says they were placed there on the safar. Then safar is like the opening of that land of Israel, to be the mezuzah, to be the protector of that doorway. Because Sichon and Og together, the numerology of Sichon and Og put together is 213. And that comes up with Yagor. Yagor literally means like awe, fear, right? And on the mezuzah itself, there are permutations of God's holy name, and there are permutations of God's name, like on the outside of the mezuzah. And they're actually names of angels, right, that are there on the mezuzah to protect the house, right? They have very special letters. So they have the same numerology, 213. No, I can't pronounce it, but it starts with a chaf, vav, zayin, vav. It's permutations of God's name, right? It's a different permutation. If we go, what? If we go to the letter after, right? Yud Ke Vav Ke, right? And then, yeah. So that equals those names on the outside of the mezuzah that protects the house, the doorway, essentially, has the same numerology as 213, which is the numerology of Sichon and Og. Because the klipa of Sichon and Og, which are on the outside, that represent the klipa of the coldness of the mind and of the heart, right, needed to be captured for the doorway now to lead out into and out and in to, from a place of holiness, right, which is what the mezuzah brings about into the in the sha'ar, right, the gate and the delit, right. And so when was this war waged of Sichon and Og? In the month of Elul. We know this from the Midrash. The Midrash says that it occurred in the month of Elul, the war against Sichon and Og, teaching us that during this time, the month of Elul is a very auspicious time for us to recognize, first of all, that there's a doorway and that there is a door. And that's a very, very important thing to recognize, because why do we feel hopeless or sad and thinking that something is not going to end, right? Something is not going, it's just going to keep on happening, right? When we get into, all of us get into funks like that, because we don't realize that there is a doorway there. We may not have found it. We may not see it yet, but there's always a doorway there, right? There is a doorway. We have to daven for the doorway. We daven for the doorway and it appears. And then we have to be courageous enough to walk through the doorway and to basically change our way and basically always seeing the doorway there, right? That the doorway has always been there. It always will be there. And there's that doorway in many ways that Hashem constantly sends us. But to be a person that has the state of mind that everything is a delit, is an opportunity, is the beauty of the month of Elul. So I want to bring together the parsha of the week. The parsha of the week is Re'eh, and it has to do with basically this awareness that we're basically asked to have. That there's Re'eh, Anochi, I am, Noten lifnechem hayom, I'm giving to you today. And we always read Re'eh right before Elul. Bracha uklala, a blessing and a curse, right? So what's going on over here? Right? What does that mean? I'm giving to you today. Why wasn't that yesterday? And why does it say Anochi, I am giving it to you? And why does it say see? I'm showing it to you. What is the idea? The Rebbe has like a whole deep, beautiful explanation is see, because with the power of sight that we can develop and basically see God in our world, then we realize that Hashem is placing this in front of us, lifnechem, in front of us. In front of us means what? In front of our deepest parts of ourselves. That our deepest parts are not subjected by good and bad. Where that goes to the next level, bracha is a blessing. That's a perceived blessing, good. But what about klala? So even the curse is just a deep blessing in disguise. That's the truth. And then, but the way to do that is by recognizing that there's a doorway that is basically God's doorway, the Anochi, that's there, that is basically even the curse is not really a curse. And even the month of Av and Tammuz, the Rashim, the Dalim, but if we combine it with a doorway, then that transforms and uplifts the whole exile and the whole negativity to now being just a doorway. It was just a doorway for the experience. Yes, it was harsh while we were in it, but once we get perspective, then we're able to actually see and go through the doorway. And there's a story about Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai that sends his son, Rabbi Lazar, to these two sages, Chachamim, like colleagues of Rabbi Shimon. He says, go to them, ask them for a blessing. And Rabbi Elazar goes to them, and he learns with them, and he says, my father asked me to ask you for a blessing. And one of them said, your field should be consumed, and your animals should, perish. And like they said like intense things to him. And he was like, whoa. And he went back to his father, and his father's like, how was it? And he was like, you asked me to ask them for a blessing. They didn't give me a blessing. They gave me a curse. And his father said, no, you're just not seeing what they really meant. And he interpreted what they meant, that your field should go away. In other words, that the place that you are in and the level that you're on right now should just, you should be transported so much to the next level in your life. And your animal should be like, that represents now like letting go of, of what doesn't serve you. And they were just giving him the deepest blessings, but he couldn't understand because it was so high, it was so deep, right? Which is also, we read before Rosh Hashanah, in Parshat Ki Tavo, and before Shavuot, right? In Parshat Bechukotai, we read about the curses, and we're like, whoa, they're intense. But as we know, everything comes from Hashem, and everything, if it's coming from Anochi, it is basically coming from the Keter. The Chaf is Anochi, the Ani is the I, but the Chaf, it's coming from the essence. And if it's coming from the essence, it's all good and it's all Him. So even the blessings, they're just such high blessings that we just don't have the opportunity to really recognize them as blessings. And we don't have the shades because it's so bright that, if someone that doesn't have shades, it could just like, it's overpowers, right? One's sight. And the Torah says, V're'ei, I want you to condition yourself to seeing and having the dela to seeing that, yes, the blessings, the things that are good, but even more than that, even the curses, recognize that they are also blessings. And that's the avoda that we are coming to in the month of Elul. And so there's this conjunction between these months that we're coming from a place of dal, right? And then we're recognizing that we are now able to perceive the door. And there's a door there with a mezuzah, and there's sichon and og there. Basically, the sichon and og is our own mind and our own intellect that we have to contend with, our own inner klipa of sichon, which is basically, what about this? What about that? What about the other thing? And only when I get that, and being in our head. What do you mean? No. But on the inside, there's names of Malachim, names of Hashem that are there. There's the Shema, but on the side of it, when it is wrapped up, right? When it is wrapped up, it has these names, and I'll show you these names, and they have the same numerology as Sichon and Og, which is basically the mezuzah. And it's interesting that this month has to do with the left arm, and therefore it has to do with tefillin. So whether or not, male or female or whatever, but the tefillin is our personal mezuzah in a sense, right? And it's basically that place that we put on the heart, that's Og, and Sichon is on our mind, right? That's basically the mezuzah that we have on our bodies. Yes, we have the mezuzah on our house, on the doorpost, the delit, but we also have the delit of our minds, right? Which we're going to learn about next week, which is shoftim v'shotrim titen lecha b'chol sha'arecha. What are the gates that a person has? The gates is our eyes, our ears, our nose, our mouth. We should put, recognize that we have gates over there. And we should put a mezuzah there, with, like on our gates. We have like before I speak, or before I listen to something, or before I want to smell something, and that means like maybe to like overly analyze something. Like let me just kind of like come back and like be able to view things in a different way, right?
Yeah, hold on, so here's a picture of the mezuzah on the back. You see what it looks like.
How do we what?
Why do I look at the mezuzah now?
No. Well, the mezuzah has the name Shakai, but basically the idea is that we are, well, we're being protected from the klipa of Sichon and Og, right? The klipa of Sichon and Og represent, actually Aaron cohen is more connected to Sichon, and says after the war of Sichon, Aaron passed away, right? And after Og, it says Og came after Moshe, and Moshe had to personally battle Og, the Gemara says. Of Sichon? Of Og. Okay. So these two battles were the battles of the Cohen, the high priest, which is basically the mind, the mindfulness, and then the king is the heart, right? Represents the heart. The king represents, it says liba shela'am, represents the heart. So Og once again represents the heart, and that klipa of the heart is the klipa of basically using our emotions to go to the wrong places, right? When our emotions are captured in the wrong places, when we are addicted to different addictions, right? That capture us, and they look like they're huge, and they're ashtarot karnaim. They have like huge, like rocks to them, and a person feels stuck, and a person feels, addicted essentially, right? If it's to the slightest thing, to the most, the most intense, and that's the battle of Og, right? Which is this giant, which also for us is, there's like this giant world that we perceive as like overtaking us and being stronger than us. And Moshe was this small little guy compared to Og, which was huge, and Moshe was scared, and God says, Al tira oto, don't fear him. I'm giving him over to you. And he battled Og, and the Talmud says he took him down, which teaches us that we should look from the inside out. That yes, the door out there is like, looks like it's got giants and liberal intellectuals or whatever that are just smarter than Adam, and you're like, what do I do over here? You're like, you're not so smart. First of all, you're kind of missing the point, because you're missing God that's in the picture. And and you're not that fearsome, being like, that, because in truth, when we're connected to our soul, then we're connected to the greatest pleasure ever. So then everything becomes an opportunity. Everything becomes pleasurable. Everything is abundant when one is connected to their soul, right? To themselves. And that means that we're connected to the now, to God's name in the present moment. So everything is an opportunity. It's not like that's it. It's like, oh, why'd you bring me this dull situation, this impoverished situation? You're not impoverished. You're full. You have a delit over here. If you're stuck in this predicament, it's for the good. What is the opportunity? Where is the doorway in this place? Instead of cursing, the day that you were born, because this happened and I'm stuck over here and this situation happened. You don't know God's plan and why God had you miss the plane and stay over, in this, meet this person and tell them exactly what they needed to hear. And it was exactly ordained, and you were the exact conduit for that. I can't tell you how many times that has happened to me in my life, and on a day-to-day level. And it's something that you don't have to be like a supernatural, like anything, like it's just being open to the opportunity. It's an opportunity. Instead of cursing why you're there, ask why you're there. Why does Hashem want me here? Where's the doorway? What is the mission over here? Because we're always on a mission. God is putting us in a place, and it's not a coincidence. It's not random. There's no randomness. It's exactly divinely ordained for you to be there. And no one else could do that work. And nobody else could do that except for you. And because what about the other person that's doing it? You're here, and this is your thing. And it's looking from the inside out as what is the opportunity. And that's basically the secret of shlichus, of looking at, there's a door, there's an opportunity with someone. It's not a closed door. It's not, because the mezuzah is there and it's shining outwards. Right? It's going into the delit is open, and it's taking that clip of sichon and og, and it's seeing godliness all over the world. Right? Because when I walk out of my doorway and I put my hand on the mezuzah, I now have the eyes of seeing that everything is God, and it's all beautiful. Even the things that seem like a curse, they're just blessings in disguise, that if I'm connected to Anochi, then I'm able to re'eh, I'm able to see them.
Revealing the concealed
good and seeing that, and seeing the doorway that's there, because the doorway is always there. Question is, are we looking for it, or are we just like bummed out, that this happened and that the other thing happened, or basically, well,
when something happens, the body is bumped, and then you have time in bed to think what happened.
Right, because that's your reaction. But the real godly reaction and the soul's reaction, in truth, is basically because Anochi lifnechem, in front of you. God is using the Torah is using that language. Right? Yes, we do react. We have the pattern. But we're not stuck to the pattern. We're not in this world to be stuck in the pattern and to be stuck in the past. The past, we could hold on to it and regurgitate it and overthink it and or just be like, this is new. This is a new opportunity. It's a new opportunity. I've done this and this a million times. Yes, but now is the only now. Now is the only opportunity. And to look at things in those fresh eyes, that is the gift of Elul. That is the gift that we're getting from Shabbos Mevarchim Elul. We're being blessed. We're blessing Elul with Parshas Re'eh, where God is saying, look for the doorway in that is there for you.
In the letters that you said, we come in Adnai, we come to Nun, and Nun is Tishrei.
Nun is
Cheshvan, and Kislev is Nun too. Nun.
Yeah.
Tishrei and Kislev are Shar Nun, if you're speaking about Shar.
Yeah. So my friends, so I want to ask you, right, and ask us all to just maybe think about that for a moment. As we enter this Shabbat, which has so much energy to it, it's such a beautiful opportunity for us to transition from a state of mind of being depleted. I have nothing. I'm coming from a place of lack. I'm coming from a place of impoverishment to I'm coming from a place of abundance, because God is there. And that means that I have the possibility, I have the ability to do, right? Because that's the truth. And it's transitioning, because the months of Tammuz and Av are intense. And they have even though it's the summertime, and yes, and we kind of we have a lot of time to take care of our bodies, and but at the same time, life isn't just vacation. life isn't just the summer, right? Even though we all wish that it was, especially when we were going back to school September 1st. Like, why is vacation so short? And our parents are like, why is it so long? It is like at least a month too long. And thank God they're going back to school. But like, but life is integrating what it is that we've gotten in the vacation, integrating it into now, actualizing it. What are we doing in September, right? What are we doing in the Tishrei, the new year, right? How are we looking at the opportunities that are there in our lives, not just the dal, the rash, the things that are seeming curses, right, in our lives. And certainly we have a lot to complain about, and as Jewish people, some people like to just put it says in the Torah, just complaining. So we could say, well, why is this happening and that's happening and that other thing's happening, versus not to ask why it's happening. What are the incredible blessings that are there right now, right? In these times, as we could say, like unknown, basically, as they are, as unknown as they are in the world, right? Not just in Israel and the United States, around the world, as unknown as what is actually unfolding. We do know that incredible light, incredible good things are happening in the world, and incredible like doorways are happening for us individually in our lives. And how can we focus on those doorways? Right? How could we focus on those doorways instead of complaining about all of the things that are out there in the news that are very easy to complain about? And everyone else.
No,
I didn't suspect you. Why can't I say news?
It's old. It's not news. It's old.
Okay, but
it's old.
It's
not
okay.
news.
It's not
This
news.
is what the Rebbe said. It's old.
Well, the news is basically is fear. It's all about like getting us to have fear, and that's not doing much, right? That's instilling a lot of impoverished mindset, and it's definitely not looking for the opportunity, right? And it's selling us what we don't need and selling us more, things that we need to protect ourselves with so things don't happen to us in the bad, as opposed to looking at what are the opportunities for the good that are there, right? Not just this preventative level, but like we want to just bring about. Yeah, we want to go with a level of fullness, of abundance, of having, of connection to the Anochi, right? To the essence that's there, that's with us at all times. So that's all, folks, for today. I think we got some food for thought for going through our doorways, and I hope we could all just find a little bit more of what those doorways are for us, contemplate them a little bit more this Shabbat, this weekend, meditate on them. Maybe giving up on coming from that lack place a little bit more, right? And having is not having a yacht or having this, and until then you don't have, right? If you don't have this many zeros in your bank account, then that means you can't really enjoy. No, you have the moment and you have what you have. You could enjoy life with a cup of coffee by yourself, right? Or with a friend, and you have everything, right? It's in our mind that we don't have. And in our mind, we're in lack. But if the opportunity is here to be here in this moment, and to enjoy this moment as Hashem wants us to, then that's a moment of seeing Hashem is in the field. God is in this field that's right outside of my mezuzah, that I'm going out. When I'm in the field, the mezuzah is there, and God is in the field. Melech Basadeh, He's there. And I'm seeing God all over the world. And everything is an opportunity for me to meet Him. When I eat something, I say a blessing, right? When I go, when I meet someone, I could interact, I could sit, when I see Hashem's nature, I could marvel and thank Hashem for Hashem's beautiful nature that He's created for us, right? For His glory, but we get to enjoy. And right, enjoy the sunset and the sunrise if you wake up early, right? Enjoy your family, enjoy your friends, right? Live life as fully and happily as possible, right? Because that's tshuva. That's coming back to God. Coming back to God is not just saying how bad we were, but coming back to like really seeing Him in our lives, opening up the door to Him, right? And feeling Him in our house and outside of our house. So, wishing everyone a beautiful new month and a beautiful Shabbat. Shabbat Mevarchim. We should all be blessed with everything that we need on the physical, on the spiritual, for the good. And ultimately the greatest blessing, the blessing of Yirah Hashem B'Tzion, of seeing Hashem, right? Yirah Hashem B'Tzion in the Beis HaMikdash, seeing Him back, right? Fully present in the world. So at that point, it says that everyone will see Hashem, right? Ki pi Hashem diber, we will see that presence of Hashem. We'll be able to witness that, right? In the most obvious revealed way. But until then, we could live that way, already live the Geula by opening up our eyes and by seeing that the Creator is there at all moment. And by that, we're living Geula, right? We're bringing that into actuality.
Thank you, Rabbi.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Have a good Shabbos.
Wishing you all a beautiful
Thank
Shabbat
you.
and many blessings. See you all next week.